Hey new mama, welcome back. It's Ellie. Thank you so much for tuning in. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the one book that had the biggest impact on my parenting style. I am going to talk about a lot of books today because it was really interesting how I read this one book and then read all these other books, and there was so much overlap. So I feel like this one book, surprisingly, is a nice overview to some parenting styles. Okay, so I'm sure you're wondering, what is this book? And I'm going to tell you right now. It is Bringing Up Bebe. It is by Pamela Druckerman. One American Mother Discovers the Wisdom of French Parenting. So I actually listened to this book on CD in my car when my first daughter was probably about 8 or 9 months old, and I was pregnant with my second daughter. If you don't know, they're a year apart. So I was listening to this book in my car, and it was just one thing after another. Was so interesting for one and valuable. And so just to give you an overview, this is an American journalist woman who moved to France because she fell in love with a man, and they got married and they started having babies, and they lived in France, and she started to realize that there was this totally different parenting philosophy from what most Americans do, and it's really interesting to see how the French people have just adopted this way of life, and they all do it the same way for the most part, I think. Now this book is at least 10 years old, if not older, so things have changed probably. Things may have changed in France, I'm not sure. But this book gave me so many good ideas and tips and everything, and I want to share 3 of them with you and where I found those 3 in other books, in other philosophies, because I think it's really important for me personally. My approach to choosing a parenting style or finding parenting tactics is I'm just going to read everything that grabs my attention, and then I can just pick and choose what I feel is best for my family. And I think that's a great approach to have. There's just so much to choose from. I don't feel like I should or could be put into a box of one parenting style. So hopefully you feel the same way, and you can just take a little bit or none of what I tell you today and make it your own. So I'm going to talk about a lot of books today, and don't worry, I'm going to link them all in the description box down below. So if you want to get one of these books, you can totally click the links down below, but also just remember you can probably get all of these from your local library. So the first point I want to touch on is an idea called, what she likes to call in the book, le pause, meaning the pause. And what this is, I think I've mentioned this before, and probably in my sleep video. This is just the idea of not rushing too quickly to your baby's cries or your baby's requests. And the idea is that it gives them the opportunity to figure it out for themselves. Now, this is in no ways cry it out or anything like that. This is just simply a pause. And this truly helped me so much when sleep training both of my babies. We never really did cry it out, but I did try the longer and longer method, which, by the way, is mentioned by Harvey Karp. And I think this is who I thought I kind of got the idea of giving them the opportunity to sleep. So this is The Happiest Baby on the Block. This is The Happiest Baby on the Block Guide to Great Sleep. I found this at a thrift store and was like, anyways, both are really great. If you don't know about the 5 S's, you should. I was resistant to them initially, but my babies both sleep amazing now. We're talking 12 plus hours every single night. Thank the Lord. So he talks about the longer and longer method, and I feel like that can really kind of tie into le pause. But you can use le pause in other areas, not just sleep with your baby. Say, for example, your child is whining for something. An idea that Harvey Karp, pretty sure it was Harvey Karp, talks about is the wait a second idea, or it's like you go to give your child what they want and you say, oh wait, mommy just has to check something, and then you check it and you say, oh, thank you so much for waiting, and then you give it to them. And so it just creates a pause where they have to kind of like figure it out or control themselves for just a minute, and then they're, praised for it. Or in the case of sleep, they figure it out. They, once given the opportunity to self-soothe, they can practice it, and hopefully they can figure it out, and all is well in the world. So le pause was one of the first things that really caught my attention. The second thing, and probably the most exciting for me, is having a feeding and sleeping schedule. Now, let me just preface this by saying that this is probably more around like the 3-month mark. Like your baby is 3 months old before this really starts. Maybe not so much in France. I feel like maybe they start it sooner. But for me personally, it felt like you're not going to be putting a newborn on a schedule. No. In Bringing Up Bebe, she talks about how pretty much all French parents follow this rule or schedule where the child will eat every 4 hours and then sleep, on a consistent schedule too. But the feeding every 4 hours is kind of the big one. And I thought that was so interesting, and I feel like I had kind of tried to implement it, but what really had me get on that schedule is this book. This is The Baby Sleep Solution. I have talked about this book before. If you are having trouble getting your child to sleep through the night, you absolutely must read this book. I tried to read all the other ones, and this one, it is so small, so simple. It is a 4-step method, and it worked for me. So you should check it out. It is by Susie Giordano, the baby coach, with Lisa Abedin. A proven program to teach your baby to sleep 12 hours a night, and mine do. So she talks about this 4-hour, feeding your baby every 4 hours. And as soon as I read that in here, I was like, oh, that's what they talked about in Bringing Up Bebe. So that was a pretty cool one to discover. Check this book out, guys. Like I said, it is amazing. It is amazing. Anyways, on to the next one. So the third thing that I got from this book is, so really quickly, I feel like this idea of French parenting, I feel like it's kind of controversial, perhaps. Some people feel like it is putting too much pressure on the children to act like adults, or being selfish as adults, asking them to do more than we may think they're capable of. But in my opinion, from how I've interpreted the book and the things that I have chosen to take from the book, I feel like it's actually a really respectful approach to parenting. And if you don't know about respectful parenting, or it's also called RIE parenting, which stands for Respect in Educaring, it is a philosophy or a method that was developed by a woman named Magda Gerber. She wrote this book called Dear Parent, Caring for Infants with Respect. And it's the idea that basically a newborn baby is capable of understanding a lot more than we may have originally thought. And really, in the beginning, the idea is that your newborn baby should be treated with respect. So you should ask them every time you go to do something. You should ask them when you go to pick them up. And then the biggest thing kind of goes back into le pause, is you should wait for their response. Now, I did not do this. I did not do this. It's really hard, especially if you don't know about respectful parenting. I'm excited to have another baby eventually because I'm going to try and do this, but it is not an easy philosophy because it kind of goes against the grain of what I had learned throughout my life as far as parenting and caring for infants. But it's just the idea that you kind of wait to hear the response of the baby, which is a very respectful thing to do. You know, you would never ask an adult a question and then just do it without hearing their response, usually. And if you did, it would be considered kind of disrespectful. So that is kind of respectful parenting in a nutshell. But one thing I want to mention is in bringing up Bebe, she talks about how they seem to expect more of their children. And there is a phrase or a term, a French term or phrase that they use. One item that I could kind of see tying into this respectful approach is that French parents insist that their children greet adults. So if you think about how American parents, maybe in your mind, American parents, you walk into someone's house, an American person's house, and their kids are playing, and the parents are like, oh, there's the kids, but the kids don't even acknowledge you. That is pretty much unacceptable in French culture. So there's this idea that kids are absolutely expected to greet any person that walks through the door or comes up to them because it's respectful. So there's that, but there's also this word, and I wish I could find it. I don't think I'm going to be able to. Ooh, what's that? And even if I did find it, I probably wouldn't be able to pronounce it correctly. So but basically it means, I know you are capable of behaving and I need you to do that now. And I just think that's such a respectful approach. Okay, so the other thing that ties into this is giving kids a cuss word of their own. And in the book, she talks about this cuss word that kids are allowed to say responsibly. So they're supposed to say it only when they're with their friends, or I think there's an instance where a little girl's in the bathroom and she's frustrated and she's allowed to say it then. But how respectful is that to be I know adults can say cuss words and, it's important that we use them responsibly. And so kids are allowed to also start practicing how to use cuss words responsibly. I feel like they give them a little bit more, is it more responsibility or more freedom? I don't know. I just feel like it's really respectful when you kind of compare it to a respectful parenting approach. So on that topic, these are Janet Lansbury's books. She has a podcast called Unruffled that I love, and she talks a lot about respectful parenting. This in no way is a whole look at parenting philosophies. This is one book that I got a lot from, and a couple other books that kind of reaffirm those things. So I hope this helps you, or at least gives you some ideas, maybe a couple little, maybe you love les pauses. I love les pauses. But let me know in the comments down below if you are reading another parenting philosophy or another parenting book right now that's really interesting to you. I'd love to hear about it. Or if you have any questions about anything that I mentioned today. I hope you like this video, and I hope so much to see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.